Hey everybody, welcome back to Movies You Missed. This is episode 12. Thank you everybody for continuing to come back and listen to Vee and myself discuss movies. How are you this morning, Vee?
I'm doing great and looking forward to discussing these two movies that are a bit of a lighter fare this week.
Yes, they are, and it's kind of good that every now and then we go a little bit on the lighter side because our first several episodes definitely were some gut punches to people, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely, and I like the fact that we're giving people an opportunity to be introduced to movies from a wide range of genres, and also because it reflects our taste in movies.
Yes, it does, and both of these movies were a lot of fun. Both were actually full of a lot of laughs as well, so I look forward to discussing your pick and my pick as well.
Yes, and both of them hold up really nicely.
I think they definitely do, and like I had mentioned to you earlier, I have not seen your film since I was a sophomore in high school. So this was actually a lot of fun to revisit it because, like with Constantine, I remember just about the entire movie, but it had just been so long, I didn't remember the dialogue per se. I remembered the events and sequences of how things went down, but it was a great watch, and my wife watched it with me, and she also enjoyed it.
Yay! Oh, another win in the Amy category. That makes me so happy. So happy.
Indeed, indeed.
She's an important critic for me, so.
Myself included, yes.
Well, great. And I don't think we've seen any new movies this week, so no updates on that front.
No, sadly we have not, and that is a bit of a heartbreaker for me, but I think next week we likely will have.
Yes, and I think both of us will have watched the same movie by next week. Is that right?
That seems to be the plan, yes.
Fantastic. Well, I look forward to discussing a movie that we both watched together again.
Me too, and going back to the theaters because I do enjoy that.
Yes, it has become almost a weekly habit for me. I feel very lucky that this year, the year that we started this podcast, we've had a very good summer so far for movies worth going to the theater for, and so I feel very fortunate with the timing on that one.
I agree. I'm looking forward to more theatrical times coming up, especially with what's coming out towards the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
So for those of you that are brand new to listening to Movies You Missed, welcome. Thank you for coming down and giving us a shot. We like to talk about films that we feel have been underrated in the past, even in the most present, and we like to revisit some films as well, and one of our favorite things to do here is to not give any spoilers away. So if you are into spoilers, you are in the wrong place, but if you're not, then welcome, and we enjoy having you here.
Absolutely, yes. We love introducing people to movies they have not seen before.
Yes, it might be my favorite thing, because so far, most of the messages and comments that we are getting from people are, oh my gosh, I either forgot that movie was that year, or I have never heard of that movie. I can't wait to watch it because of how you guys explained it.
Which is why we decided when we started this show to do no spoilers.
Yes, and I only do spoilers if I really hate a movie, and I only do it on a Facebook post. I don't do it here. So if you ever want to hear any spoilers about movies that I hate, just send me a DM and I will try and find my post about Jurassic World, La La Land, Manchester by the Sea, Drive My Car, etc., etc.
You will happily vent to someone about how much you hate a movie.
Yes, I will. It's a lot of fun because it seems to make people laugh.
Yeah, well, that's because you do a great job on your write-ups. They usually make me laugh.
Well, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
So without further ado, do you want to jump right into it?
I do. I like the fact that we picked comedies this week and excited to either introduce people or remind people. And honestly, we're just doing ourselves a service given how many times we've discussed your movie so far in our podcast.
Absolutely. I am very excited about getting into it.
Nice. Well, we'll get into that soon. However, I do believe I go first this week.
You do.
Okay.
Take it away, V.
Alrighty. Well, I picked, for our theme this week, which is someone pretending to be someone else, I picked the movie from 1993 starring Kevin Kline and Sigourney Weaver and a bunch of other great people I'll get into. The movie is called Dave. It centers around a president who has a stroke, and his team decides to hide that fact. So they hire a lookalike, whose real name is Dave, to impersonate the president. And that includes hiding this fact from his entire cabinet, the vice president, and the president's wife, and what happens through that deception.
Indeed. Great entertaining film, and like I just said before, have not seen it in at least 2 decades.
And I think that is a perfect test on whether or not a movie holds up versus someone who, if you really enjoy a movie and you see it once a year, that just holds a special place in your heart. But if you show a movie to someone who hasn't seen it before at all or hadn't seen it since it came out, I think that is a perfect test for whether it's nostalgia versus being good.
Absolutely. I agree with that for sure. And I think it might be both, because high school was a good time for me. And when I saw
you're
this...
lucky.
Well, when I first saw it, I thought it was a pretty entertaining movie, and it, again, to me, it definitely held up for being a 93. I mean, that's almost 30 years ago. So when I first saw the film, like I said, I was a sophomore in high school, so I definitely understood a lot of the comedy when I saw this movie for the first time. But being in my 30s now, it was an interesting watch too, especially because, I kind of feel like there's always going to be many people that wish somebody else were in the White House, or that the president was for the people, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think this movie has a lot of heart. It's a comedy, but not silly, and just a very, very heartwarming experience to watch this movie, actually.
Definitely.
The other thing I was very impressed by is, even though this movie is nearly 30 years old, the jokes are still funny.
Yes, they are. The comedy is great. Halfway through the movie, I actually turned to my wife and said, this is actually a lot funnier than I do remember it being. And the fact that it is still funny makes me very happy.
And I think there's a couple of pieces of and nods to the government and how it runs that are still very relevant today. There's a point where Dave, pretending to be the president, brings a friend of his over to the White House. And his friend's really nervous. He's like, oh my God, what are we doing here? And he's like, no, it's okay, it's okay. And his friend's like, dude, like, what if we get caught? And Dave's like, yeah, by whom? And he goes, the government. And Dave goes, I'm the government.
That's right, yeah.
And I thought that was so relevant for current times.
Oh, absolutely.
Of people getting away with horrible shit because they're a government, and there aren't enough overseeing or watchdog groups to be like, oh yeah, I'm the government, I'm going to do what I want.
Yeah, that was great.
Thought it was very poignant for current times, to be honest with you.
I will agree. And why don't we talk about who plays his best friend? Because I did not realize who played his best friend, and when he came on screen, I was like, "Aw."
Go for it. Yeah, take that away.
So while that scene is great, I also really like how his best friend is introduced, because Dave works at a employment placement center and he's trying to get people work. And the fact that Dave goes to his best friend, who is played by Charles Grodin, I think I first saw him in Beethoven, like majority of people our age did. Mm-hmm. Father in Beethoven, and then after that I saw him in a great film with Robert De Niro entitled Midnight Run, which is hilarious. Robert De Niro is a bounty hunter and tracks down Charles Grodin's character, and they spend the rest of the movie trying to get to the bail bonds facility, etc., etc. I've only seen Midnight Run 2 or 3 times. I remember it being very entertaining. Charles Grodin's also in another film from the 70s with Warren Beatty titled Heaven Can Wait, which is the original Down to Earth, which was remade with Chris Rock and Bernie Mac in the early 2000s. And Charles Grodin was just a great actor, and he really brought a lot of humanity to his character, especially because he is the one that keeps taking all of these people that Dave keeps bringing him to interview. So, yeah, I thought Charles Grodin did a great job, and that whole sequence when I'm the government, and they sit there and Dave orders all this food, and they're like sitting in there, and what they're doing is something that very likely would never on the planet happen. They're discussing the budget of the United States, and Charles Grodin's like, well, you can take this out, you can take that out, you can take this out. So I thought that was actually a very entertaining sequence.
Absolutely. And I also thought that when that scene was happening, I was thinking the same thing. And I was like, you know what? I bet there is a bunch of bullshit in the budget like this, because they get to a point where like, oh yeah, we are spending $53 million on people for consumer confidence on cars they already bought.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, there's probably a bunch of bullshit in the budget like that.
Yeah, that was interesting, that budget meeting. And really, the dialogue of that scene is very, very good. I really like the way that they break it down. And every time Dave is sitting in the president's chair in that meeting room, I don't know what the room is essentially.
It's the cabinet meeting room.
Cabinet meeting room, thank you. And he's like, hey, Mark, and he's like looking one direction, and the guy answers from the other side, and he's like, oh yeah, over there. And then he like looks at him and goes, so why are we spending this on this? And he's like, well, I don't really know. And he's like, okay, well.
Yeah, and I love his friend, Charles Grodin, as you mentioned, comes to him and says, if I ran my business like this, I'd be out of business.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, exactly. That's probably true.
That's the government for you.
Yeah. Again, this is a great movie. It does have a fun story, and there are some fantastic fantastic actors in this movie. There are 5 Oscar winner and nominees in this cast. This cast is really stacked. And for some of our repeat listeners, I know that is a fun theme that I like to pick a lot. And it honestly isn't purposeful. It just happens that there are a lot of movies that are either underrated or worth revisiting. They have a great cast. That's one of the reasons why they're great movies, right?
Absolutely, yes. So who are these other nominees beyond, well, I don't know any of them, so drop it on me, V.
All right. So first and foremost, Kevin Kline stars as Dave, as we mentioned. He was nominated and won Best Supporting Actor Oscar for A Fish Called Wanda that had come out about 4 years before this movie.
Oh, wow. I've heard of that film. I've never seen it.
It's fun. It's got Jamie Lee Curtis, so I think it's a requirement that you see it, given you're a big fan of hers.
I will have to add that to my list of watch, indeed.
Oh, I haven't seen it in a few years. I'm not positive if it holds up, but I remember it being, John Cleese is in it. I remember it being a very funny movie. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Very funny movie. So Kevin Kline, for some of our younger audience or newer to the movies listeners, he's also Maurice Bell's dad in the live action remake of Beauty and the Beast.
That's right. Yes, he is.
So I know you really enjoy the part of the show where you ask me about the top movies of a specific year for me to guess. So I would love to throw some trivia on you this episode.
Yes,
and
please.
have you guess a couple things.
Oh, I would love to.
Covering Kevin Kline's filmography, this is the first but not the only movie where he has played the president, but also the person pretending to be the president.
Really?
And I'm wondering if you can guess the movie that he did that again a few years later on.
Ooh, any hints?
Yes, it's a movie that co-stars the most recent Best Oscar winner.
Wait, Wild Wild West?
Yes.
He plays the president in Wild Wild West?
He plays Ulysses S. Grant. He also plays the guy pretending to be Ulysses S. Grant when that assassination attempt happens.
No way. I do not remember that. I've seen Wild Wild West twice,
terrible.
I think. So bad. I don't remember much of Wild Wild West except for Kenneth Branagh being the villain in Wild Wild West.
God.
And poor Kenneth Branagh. But wow, Wild Wild West, and actually I don't know if you know this about Wild Wild West, but that movie came out when South Park Bigger, Longer, and Uncut came out. And Wild Wild West had a high box office gross because kids were buying tickets for Wild Wild West but going to see South Park Bigger, Longer, Uncut. And I wasn't one of those kids, unfortunately. I had not even started watching South Park at that time because I was still in elementary school. But yeah, I never saw Wild Wild West in theaters. I saw it at a sleepover at a friend of mine's house. And I was watching it with my buddy. His name's Jordan Thaler. And I will always remember halfway through Wild Wild West, it's me and him and his mother sitting in his living room. And it's halfway through the movie. And his mom goes, "Well, boys, this movie sucks. I'm going to bed." And she went to bed. And we finished the movie. And we were both like, yeah, that wasn't that great.
No. And it is a Barry Sonnenfeld directed movie.
No.
And the one stain on his, he's actually a pretty consistent director, to be honest with you. I mean, he's done the Addams Family movies. He's done Men in Black movies.
Yeah.
Get Shorty, For Love or Money. But he did do Wild Wild West.
Wow. I saw him on the WB lot once. He was walking around. He was wearing like a John Hammond hat, and he was wearing a pink button-down shirt.
Nice.
And I can't remember what he was doing on the lot. He might have been directing a commercial or something like that, but this was like 2007. And I just remember being like, oh my gosh, he directed Men in Black. I got to say something. And I never did because I was eating my Paquito Mas. So who else are the Oscar nominees in this
let's
movie?
get away from that trash pile that we were just talking about. Got totally on a tangent about. So Sigourney Weaver. I mentioned her last week. She's my father's all-time favorite actress. She's certainly one of my all-time favorite actresses as well. I love her. I think she's so fucking cool.
Oh, yeah.
She's a total badass. She is an Academy Award nominee. She was actually nominated twice in the same year.
Oh, wow.
She's never won an Oscar yet, but she was nominated in 1987 for Aliens.
No way.
As Best Actress. Yep.
Oh, hell yeah.
Which I think is so fucking cool given
bitching.
how many times sci-fi movies are just straight up ignored by the Academy.
Yeah, definitely.
And in 1988, she was nominated for Best Actress for Gorillas in the Mist, where she played Diane Fossey. Highly recommend anyone either read that book or watch that movie. Great, great story about Diane Fossey who tries to save gorillas.
Oh, fascinating. I had no idea about that movie at all.
Great. It's great. She is the Jane Goodall for gorillas, is what I like to think.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out.
And in 1988, she was also nominated for Best Supporting Actress for Working Girl, which is a great movie.
So she's been nominated 3 times?
She's been nominated 3 times. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Never saw Working Girl either.
Oh, yeah. Harrison Ford's in it. Melanie Griffith. It was a good movie in the 80s.
Melanie Griffith.
Oh, yeah? On what?
I have. It was a short project years and years ago that I don't know whatever happened to it, but she was very nice, and all she did was smoke cigarettes and talk about her youth, and a lot of times she would say, "Oh, my ex-husband Antonio Banderas."
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, they were married for a minute. But yeah, sweetheart. Had her for 3 days, and she was just very nice. I don't want to get too deep into it away from what we're talking about, but yeah, Melanie Griffith is a sweetheart.
Oh, nice. That's always good to hear for whoever we're talking about in the film industry. And Frank Langella is in this movie, and he plays the White House Chief of Staff, and he's always been very, very good at playing a just mean son of a bitch in movies.
Yeah, he is.
He's been nominated for an Oscar for Frost Nixon, which is a very good movie where he plays President Nixon.
I never saw that one either. That's him and Michael Sheen.
It is. It's very good. I recommend it, actually.
I've heard it's great. I do. I should check that one out.
He's also...
When the president doesn't, it's not illegal.
Exactly. So good. And he's actually the famous character of Perry White, which is the newspaper guy for the Superman storyline. He was Perry White in Superman Returns, the oft lambasted Superman Returns, but I actually didn't hate that movie.
Is that the one with Christopher Reeve?
No. This is the 2006 Bryan Singer movie with Brandon Roth and Kevin Spacey.
And Kate Bosworth.
And
what a horrible movie that was.
And James Marsden.
Was James Marsden in that?
Yeah, he's the boyfriend.
Oh, okay. I don't remember.
Yeah.
I saw it once in theaters because I was going to school in Manhattan, and they cut that movie on, I think it was Avid Media Composer or Adrenaline or something like that.
I think it was Avid.
Yeah, I was learning a few Avid algorithms at the time. And our instructors were like, "Hey guys, surprise day! We're gonna go see Superman Returns." And I was like, "Oh boy!"
And Ben Kingsley's in this movie.
Oh yes,
won an Oscar for Gandhi. We've spoken about him
right.
in our Lucky Number 11 episode.
Yeah. Good
guy, and really like his character in this movie. He just plays a really wholesome person in a sea of liars.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, I liked that he, I honestly, when I saw his name in the credits, as the movie's starting, I'm just like, Ben Kingsley, who the hell is he playing this movie?
Right, exactly.
One of my favorite scenes in the movie is when we see Ving Rhames in Dave's apartment as Dave is singing Oklahoma while the wind blows. And one of the other moments in this movie that I really like is after Dave has been a little bit acclimated after a few nights in the White House. He's down in the kitchen. He's making himself a sandwich.
Which is one of the best looking sandwiches I've ever seen, though. I immediately wanted a sandwich when I watched it.
Oh, man, yeah. The bread looked tasty.
Oh.
It was I think it was roast beef, turkey, carrot shavings. The only thing that I didn't like on it was the olives, but he cuts it in half and he puts it in front, puts it down on the table so he can start eating, and he has Ving Rhames' character sit and join him. And the conversation they have there is very entertaining, and I thought Ving Rhames was pretty good in this movie because Ving Rhames rarely is in a comedy. The whole sequence when Dave is telling him, is like, I always ever see you in a suit and tie. What about a sweater vest? And he's like, you think I'd look good in a sweater vest? Like,
a sweater makes my neck look big.
Yes, exactly.
That was so cute. Yes, Ving Rhames is the head of the Secret Service detail for the president, and therefore now Dave in this movie. And yes, he's a great addition to this movie for sure. And I love him in all the Mission Impossible movies, and my sister loves him in Pulp Fiction. That's definitely another movie that he's very recognizable from, as well as I thought he was great in Con Air. Diamond Dog.
Absolutely, yeah. Con Air is a great fucking movie. There was another not necessarily a cameo. I think they use this guy not every movie where they have a presidency or the White House, but Bill McLaughlin. He was one of those people that in the 90s that was prominently discussing politics with people, and it seemed that it was just like kind of like The View, but like for politics more than anything. And I will always remember him from Independence Day on the TV as the alien ship is coming in.
Oh yeah, there are so watching the credits, there's a whole list of people that just says himself in the credits. There are so many cameos in this movie. Jay Leno, Oliver Stone, Ben Stein. There's a bunch of people in Washington that are playing themselves, including senators. Tim O'Neill's in this movie.
Yeah, there was definitely some political types in this movie playing themselves. And I thought the whole Oliver Stone cameo with Larry King was great. How Oliver Stone's like, it's a conspiracy. It's not really the president. I thought that was good.
Hilarious. Yeah, that was a great nod. And another Oscar winner. He's another one of the Oscar winners in this movie because he's won
Stone?
because he's won for Best Director.
That's right. Yes, he has. And a lot of people are on the fence with Oliver Stone. I haven't liked every Oliver Stone film, but I like majority of them. I mean, I like Platoon quite a bit. And I know a lot of people hated this movie, but I didn't think Alexander was that bad.
Yeah, it sucks. No, it's bad. It is that bad. It is that bad.
It probably is. I don't know why I like that movie so much, though. I think I just like the grand scope of it and a lot of the battle sequences. I think it just like it was just so brutal and bloody, and it was a fascinating story because I didn't know a whole lot about Alexander the Great. So, but
he butchered with over dramatization and terrible casting.
Well, Jared Leto's in it. Your favorite?
Not even that. Just actually, I don't give a shit about that. His part of the movie. What I care about is Angelina Jolie was cast as his fucking mother. And she in real life is like 2 years older than Colin Farrell. It was so dumb.
Yeah, that was a little stupid. And her makeup wasn't that great either.
And her accent was terrible.
Oh, yeah, real bad.
Yeah, no, it was...
Okay, fine. Maybe Alexander's not that
great. You're entitled to your opinion.
I liked Val Kilmer in it, though, as his father. I thought that was good.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I haven't watched it in a while. Maybe I'll give it another 3-hour excursion and see what I think now.
Maybe you should use your 3 hours to watch Elvis or something instead.
Or The Batman. I still got to watch The Batman.
Oh my God, yes. Please do that instead with your time. But no, I agree with you. A lot of his older movies I really, really like. And I didn't hate Savages. That's a newer one of his. But I think his older...
Oh, I did.
See, yeah. But I think his older 80s and 90s movies were very good. And I definitely at some point want to introduce you to Born on the 4th of July because I believe that is Tom Cruise's best performance of his career.
Yes, I definitely want to check that one out.
Yeah, it's a great movie. And a couple other people in this movie, including Laura Linney, who...
Yeah.
I love the fact that earlier in her career, she played this kind of nervous wreck of a woman. She definitely plays that in this movie, as well as The Truman Show, very similar character when she's married to Jim Carrey in The Truman Show, right?
Right, yep.
And also, Love Actually, where her storyline is just such a bummer in Love Actually. And then she takes a turn in her career and is now really known for, lately, Ozark.
Oh, right, yeah.
Which is completely different character. And she is just fucking evil in that show and does it so well. She is fantastic. I mean, everybody is in that show. Ozark, if anybody hasn't seen it, I know you hate Netflix. I get it.
Do.
But Ozark is an incredible show. It just ended. It had a great run. It's always nice when a show ends and you can say from start to finish it was actually good. And it absolutely did that. And she is fucking evil and so cold and good in that show. So highly recommend for anyone interested.
I liked her in Mystic River. I thought she was fucking nuts in Mystic River.
Oh yeah. God, that movie's so good too.
Yeah, it is.
And so there's also a very short cameo.
Yay, you're going to say it. Yes, yay.
With Bonnie Hunt.
Yay. We're walking.
Oh, what an honor for you all. We're walking.
Yeah,
we're walking.
That was so good.
And I've used that quote so many times in my life since watching the movie for the first time.
Really?
Oh, God. I say, when we're walking.
Oh,
I say that all the time in my life. But yeah, it was such a great cameo. I loved it.
I remember because you don't see her immediately. You hear her voice, though. Mm-hmm. And I was like, no. And then it cuts to her. I'm like, oh, shit. Oh, there was one moment when that's what I want to talk about, actually, when Charles Grodin comes to the White House and Dave's like, watch this. And he picks up the phone. I'm like, yes, Mr. President. And he goes, hey, I've got a friend in town. We're going to have some lunch. Get us some fresh bratwurst and some hot mustard. And Charles Grodin's like, I love bratwurst. worst.
Yes.
It's like, I know you do.
And-
I thought that was great.
And that was, of all the things of being the president, the thing that I was most enticed by was the fact that you can just ask for whatever food you want at literally any time. When he's down there making that sandwich and there's that giant spread of food, I was like, fuck, that looks so good.
Yeah.
But that's just because I'm very food motivated.
As am I. I do love my foods.
And Ivan Reitman
Yes.
is the director of this movie. And from behind the scenes, in front of the camera, there are some great people that are part of this movie. Ivan Reitman, great director, made some classic movies, including the first two Ghostbusters movies.
Yes.
Did you also notice the other cameo in this movie where they're talking to a bunch of kids? And Arnold Schwarzenegger makes an appearance in this movie.
Yes, that's right. I do remember that. I was like, Schwartz?
And I was like, how is this, in the early 90s, he's trying to become legit actor. Okay, maybe that's why he's in this movie. That's an interesting ad, though. And then, of course, remembering this is an Ivan Reitman movie, I was like, oh, yeah, because he's done Twins and Kindergarten Cop and Junior, and he directed all of those movies. And
did Ivan Reitman direct Junior?
Yeah.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, so I was like, of course Arnold's in this movie. That makes total sense.
I haven't seen Junior in I don't know how long. Same with Twins. I haven't seen Twins in a long time.
Not sure if either of those hold up. I haven't seen them since the 90s. Would have no idea.
Yeah, I feel like Twins may hold up to an extent, but Junior,
no.
I don't know.
Agreed. Yeah,
Kindergarten Cop, maybe. Kindergarten Cop.
It's not a tumor. I say that all the time.
That's like everybody. That's like Tombstone. Everybody only knows I'm Your Huckleberry, and it's like, yeah, but there's a whole movie there.
Yes, there is. Ivan also directed 6 Days, 7 Nights with Harrison Ford.
Never saw it.
It's it's a rom-com. It's fun. I don't think it deserves as much hate as it gets, but it's also not like a classic or anything.
Right.
And he also directed a movie that definitely flew under the radar, but holds a special place in my heart because David Duchovny's in it.
I was gonna say, are you gonna bring up Evolution?
Hell yeah!
Orlando Bloom, Sean William Scott.
So good.
I like
Ethan
that movie
Suplee's
too.
in it. Oh,
yes, he is. It's not a good movie, like by any means, but it is funny, and it's like
campy fun. Like it's made in 2001. It was at the tail end of like 90s camp. Yeah, it's very silly. It's very fun. Julianne Moore's in it. It's very. I highly recommend it. It's
Dan
fun.
Aykroyd's in it.
Yeah, that's right.
It's actually a lot of it's very entertaining,
fun.
and the special effects are cool. Like the aliens are pretty crazy looking. I remember watching that and just being like, "This is a really hard PG-13 because it's very sex related humor."
Yes, there's a lot of sex related humor.
Yeah, but again, 2001. Yeah, Beavis and Butthead Do America was like 96, 97, and that's all sex jokes.
All sex jokes. Yeah. But yes, Evolution's fun. I haven't seen it in a few years. I need to revisit it though. But it's
constantly playing on HBO on DirecTV. Like
exactly.
every few days, like Evolution. Like and I turn it on, and it's usually an hour in or like 10 minutes in. And I'll watch the whole damn thing.
Hell yeah. Exactly.
It's a fun one.
It is a fun one. So yeah, and then the writer of this movie is Gary Ross, who has given us some very, very classic 90s movies. Gary Ross has written the original Hunger Games movie screenplay.
Oh, that's too bad.
We'll leave that there. He also wrote the Seabiscuit screenplay.
Oh, that's a great one.
See?
Pleasantville. I really like Seabiscuit.
Did
Pleasantville? Yeah, Pleasantville's all right.
And he also wrote Big.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Big sucks. No, I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. I actually really like Big. Even though it's kind of pedophiliac in a way.
Well, it didn't age well because him sleeping with that woman. No, it didn't age well in that aspect of the storyline. But
I'm sure just like every man, they're like, man, he's only 11.
Yeah.
He was like under 13 or something like that. Yeah, okay, got it. Now, Big was entertaining. Robert Loggia.
Yeah.
And the big piano.
Classic.
Yeah.
Classic. All right. So this movie is great. It holds up, as we discussed, and it did well when it came out as well. It had a $28 million budget, which I was actually kind of surprised by. That seems like a lot in 93.
Yeah, it does. $28 million? Good Lord.
Yeah. But it did well. It made $92 million at the box office.
Hey.
So yeah.
Nice job, everybody.
Former presidents Bill Clinton and Barack Obama are big fans of this movie and have actually contacted Gary Ross about it, which I think is great.
No way.
And This movie's Oval Office set was reused more than 25 times after they built it.
Whoa.
So-
For the movie or separate movies?
For separate movies. So
No kidding.
obviously, nothing from Hollywood can actually be filmed in the White House, of course.
Right, yeah.
And so they built an Oval Office, and this is in 93. So it's been reused 25 times since then for different movies and TV, including The Pelican Brief,
Oh.
Hot Shots, Absolute Power with Clint Eastwood,
Oh, yeah.
filmed in this set. And then also another one of my faves, because of course I'm a huge Harrison Ford fan, Clear and Present Danger.
Oh, yeah. Nice. You know what's interesting? When we were talking about Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, we did not even mention Air Force One.
We didn't?
We did not. I listened to the episode and I was like, we didn't even bring up Air Force One. Oh, well.
Because he has such a great repertoire. It's
Yes, he does.
hard to name them all in one episode. But
Agreed.
we will be picking more Harrison Ford movies, so I'm sure we can touch
There we
on
go.
those later. We can even do an Harrison Ford episode where you pick Air Force One, because I know you're a big fan of it, and I'll pick something else.
I do like that one.
Yeah, so no worries. But yes, he's been in some great movies. And I don't think you've seen Clear and Present Danger, have you?
I have not, and I said that I have it on Blu-ray, but I actually have Patriot games. I don't have Clear and Present Danger.
Oh, watch that one first.
Yeah.
They are tied together quite nicely.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. Watch Patriot Games first, and then watch Clear and Present Danger.
Will do.
And Sigourney, just a silly trivia, but I thought it was interesting. Sigourney Weaver's hair was really short in this movie.
Yeah.
It was very, very short because she had been growing it out from another movie.
Oh, really?
Do you remember a movie that she had extremely short hair?
Yeah, it would be Alien. Aliens or Alien 3.
Alien 3, that's right.
Yeah,
Alien
yeah.
3.
She shaved her head.
She shaved her head, which
Yeah.
very bold in 92, I think that movie came out,
Mm-hmm.
for shaving your head and as a woman and as an actress. So she had been growing it out from Alien 3, and that's why her hair was so short.
Wow. Cool.
Yeah. So that's Dave. Really, really enjoyed this movie. I love the fact that it holds up from the 90s. And if you'd seen it before, I can tell you it's definitely worth revisiting. And if you haven't, it's a very nice escape from the current political climate to showing politics in a little more wholesome, or at least more having a little bit more heart.
I agree. Yes.
And you can rent this movie from any of the streaming services for $3.99.
That's how I watched it.
Okay. Well, thank you for spending your money on one of my movies, and
Yeah.
I'm glad you got the return on investment by enjoying it.
Very much so, yes. And again, like I said, the wife enjoyed it as well. So it was a twofer.
Good. Okay, so that wraps it up for my movie. Thank you so much, and I'm very, very excited to now transition into yours.
Yes, my film actually came out in 2001, so we're not going to go into the highest grossing because we already did that with another 2001 release. But as V had mentioned before, and I have mentioned, we have talked about this movie, I think, for the first 5 or 6 episodes of Movies You Missed podcast, and that movie seems to hold a very special place in both of our hearts because even before we started recording today, we were already talking about how much we loved watching it again. That is the 2001 written and directed by Brian Helgeland. Now, if those of you that continually listen may remember, Brian Helgeland wrote and directed Legend, starring Tom Hardy, which was a film that I chose a few weeks back. And this film is led by Heath Ledger, Mark Addy, Rufus Sewell, Alan Tudyk, Paul Bettany, and Shannon Sossamon. That movie is A Knight's Tale. Yay! We're talking about it.
Yay, finally!
A Knight's Tale. What a great fucking film.
And it holds up quite nicely.
Oh, it holds up. It really does. It is so fucking funny. Isn't it?
Funny, so
Makes me laugh.
quotable.
Yeah.
Again, another movie. I think is a perfect pairing this episode because
Oh, yeah.
this movie has a ton of heart too.
Oh, so much. Yeah, it really is the core of the movie is the, wanting to truly, quote unquote, change his stars, which is one thing that his father says to him as a young boy. And that character, Heath Ledger, William Thatcher. Basically, for those that have not seen A Knight's Tale, without giving anything away, Heath Ledger starts to impersonate a knight so that he can joust, so that he and his 2 friends can start making money and eat and, get some showers and have a place to sleep at night. We are introduced to William Thatcher as a very poor squire, and he then takes his dead knight's armor and does a joust and wins the first go-around. So they're paid a little bit of money. Heath Ledger's character, William Thatcher, then pitches to his 2 friends, played by Mark Addy and Alan Tudyk, that if they keep doing this, they can make more money, and they don't have to only settle for the 5 coins each. Lo and behold, things start to continually move forward for them. They start training, and the training sequence is great.
Yes.
And not only because it's very entertaining, but because the soundtrack in this movie is very modern. And the reason why the soundtrack is so modern, for certain parts of the movie, Brian Helgeland had it in his head that having a modern soundtrack, now, again, mind you, this is 2001 modern. This is already a 21-year-old movie.
He picked classic songs, though.
Oh, very classic songs, yeah. And that's another thing, too. They're not necessarily modern for 2001. They're modern for, the quote-unquote classic rock, where a lot of people these days, 30 years ago, they're still talking about 1970. And
I am.
So am I. But 30 years ago was almost 1993.
Was my movie.
So there you go, yeah. So a lot of the songs are from the 70s, some of them from the 60s as well.
Sing it. I want you to sing it again. You did it in a previous episode.
Oh, yeah. And we definitely have some David Bowie popping around. We got the sequence with Golden Years, which is one of my favorite sequences.
Thank you.
In A Knight's Tale, because Rufus Sewell's character is trying to embarrass William Thatcher, although he's not going by William Thatcher anymore. He's going by Sir Ulrich von Liechtenstein of Gelderland. And after this jousting competition, after Count Adhemar, who is played by Rufus Sewell.
Such a dick.
Oh, such a dick.
He's so good at playing a bad guy.
He really is, yeah. And he's actually, I saw him, I think, for the first time in a movie called Bless the Child with Kim Basinger, where he plays this cult demonic, leader. So I remember seeing him show up in A Knight's Tale, and I just immediately hated him because I hated him in Bless the Child. Didn't hate him, loved the character. I hated the character, loved his performance.
Yes.
So after Sir Ulrich meets Count Adhemar, the main reason why they meet is because Adhemar is trying to court Jocelyn, who is played by Shannon Sossaman, and Sir Ulrich is already on that courting situation with her, and she's already kind of got a little bit of liking to Sir Ulrich, so there's already that animosity between Adhemar and him. So Adhemar's trying to embarrass him at this banquet, and like I've mentioned before in previous episodes, there's this whole dance sequence where one of the guys is like, how would you like to dance tonight? And Adhemar's like, why don't you give us a dance from Gelderland? He's trying to kind of work his way through
dance up on the spot.
Certain moves, and then Jocelyn's, she's kind of like, what, fuck you, Adhemar, and she goes in there and helps him out, and then Golden Years starts going on, and everybody starts dancing, and I gotta say, I really like that dance sequence, because not only is it somewhat choreographed in the beginning, it then just becomes a bacchanal of just a lot of fucking fun, and you can tell that everybody, background included, is having a great fucking time.
Yes, that is a great sequence.
Yeah. Beyond that, there's a whole bunch of other fantastic sequences. The stunts in this movie are spectacular, and watching the making
Badass.
there's very little wire work that goes into the jousting sequences.
Jesus.
And so a lot of these guys are really being smashed around by these lances, which one of my favorite parts in the movie. Jocelyn's like, better a girl with a flower than a silly boy with a horse and a stick. And she walks away, and Alan Tudyk's character, Watt, he goes, it's called a loss, hello. And it's just, that's very modern dialogue.
You're just a silly girl, aren't you?
Better a silly girl with a flower than a silly boy with a horse and a stick.
It's called a loss. Hello?
That's one of the charming things I think that I really liked about A Knight's Tale was that, it's very relatable dialogue-wise, and at the same time somewhat relatable to just about anybody that really wants to better themselves. And as scary as that can be for some people, you can tell that everybody really is on board with trying to become somebody they're not.
Absolutely, and like you said, better themselves. And God, Alan Tudyk, huge fan of him.
Yeah.
I love the series Firefly, which he's in. He's Wash in Firefly, and he is just so notable for being a bit part in movies, and they're just he's just so great. He's a great character actor. He disappears into roles. He's recently in FX's Resident Alien, a new show. If you haven't seen it, it's very good.
Very entertaining.
He's
show.
very good in that. He's one of my all-time favorite droids in the Star Wars universe. He is K2SO in Rogue One, and God damn it, he's funny in that too.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he does
he's
a lot
also
of voice
King
acting.
Candy in Wreck-It Ralph.
Oh, right. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, he's
He's Hey Hey in Moana.
He's Hey Hey in Moana. He's the rooster.
He's the rooster in Moana.
Oh yeah, and he is Duke Wesselton in Frozen.
Oh, that's right.
And
yes.
they call him Weasel.
Yes, that's right.
He's a great voice actor, and he is also
Well, he's also Steve the Pirate in Dodgeball.
Oh God, I love him in that movie so much. I love him in that movie. Oh, he's Iago in the new Aladdin movie too.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
He is also, he's a very, very small scene. He's sitting on the back of this truck, and he's a redneck in Deadpool 2 when Cable comes back from the future. And these two rednecks are sitting on the back of this truck, and they're talking and having this totally ridiculous conversation. And it's Alan Tudyk and Matt Damon who are dressed up as rednecks.
Right.
And
Yes.
it's so hard to recognize them, but it's hilarious cameos. I really enjoyed that too.
He was also in a great kind of horror comedy called Tucker and Dale versus Evil, and that was actually a very entertaining film too.
I've heard good things and would love to watch it because I'm such a fan of his. Please, at some point pick it because I would love to watch that movie with you.
Oh yeah, no, it's a good one.
Okay, good.
So a little bit more about the cast. We also have Mark Addy. He notably came onto the scene with the Full Monty back in the day
I remember
with
him from.
Robert Carlyle. And then one of my favorite characters in the entire film, Paul Bettany, plays Geoffrey Chaucer. And the introduction to Geoffrey Chaucer is quite interesting. We see him fully naked from the back. We don't see the front. But finding out that Paul Bettany's first day was his first nude scene, and he said that everybody was kind of around, and it wasn't necessarily a quote-unquote closed set like it normally would have been.
Right.
So I thought that was pretty funny.
I couldn't believe that trivia when I read it. I was just your first day is this nude scene. And that's actually one thing that we can talk about for our listeners, that because film and TV shows are not filmed in a linear fashion at all.
Nope.
Locations influence that, costuming and makeup and facial hair, or someone needing to lose weight, or someone need to grow something out. There are a lot of reasons why filming is not filmed in a linear fashion, and so there are many, many times that we'll read about or know about where your very first day is a sex scene with an actor you literally just met because it's their first day.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah.
It's gotta be kind of awkward, right?
I can only imagine it is. Yeah. I would imagine it would have to be. And Brian Helgeland and Paul Bettany actually were friends, still are friends, because Paul Bettany is also in Legend, but when Brian Helgeland sent Paul Bettany the script, he called him up and called him a bastard because he said, "I'm naked the whole movie." And so Brian Helgeland kind of changed that up. He definitely is not naked the whole movie, but there are a few times where we're gifted Paul Bettany's rear end.
And, it's funny because I was actually introduced, and I think a lot of people were introduced to Paul Bettany as Americans in A Knight's Tale. This is the first time I'd ever seen him.
Yeah.
In anything.
That was my first time too. Yep.
He was instantly memorable. He stole every scene he was in, and I've been a huge fan of him ever since then. And then he took this total left turn and was this evil, evil monk in the Da Vinci Code. He's great in that.
Oh, yeah.
He was great in A Beautiful Mind. I have
so good.
Really, really liked him ever since he came on the scene. And he's married to one of my favorite actresses, Jennifer Connelly. So
yes,
he's also a very lucky man.
Indeed. A Beautiful Mind is a great movie.
It is.
So yeah, Paul Bettany's character, Geoffrey Chaucer, for those that are into literature, Geoffrey Chaucer wrote the Canterbury Tales and endless other pieces of literature. One thing that I thought was also kind of fascinating about A Knight's Tale and the time frame that it's set, there is a year of Geoffrey Chaucer's life that has been undocumented, that historians don't know anything about what was going on with him in his life. A Knight's Tale is supposed to be set during that year.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I love that tie-in.
Yeah. During that year, Geoffrey Chaucer was touring around with Sir Ulrich von Liechtenstein and introducing him like at a boxing match, which the introductions. Oh, so good. Every one of his introductions for Sir Ulrich before the jousts were always fantastic. And one of my favorite things about all of those is when Sir Ulrich wins the sword competition, and Geoffrey Chaucer comes running and he lifts his hand up like he's just won a boxing match. He goes, "The Rock," and he just keeps going off. And after that, there's a moment of silence, and the camera's panning around, and then Mark Addy's character just starts screaming like, "Yeah!" and the whole place goes up in flames of just, cheering and roaring. The reason that happened was because they were shooting in Prague, and the Czech background had no idea what Paul Bettany was saying. So they didn't know that they were supposed to cheer.
So
that's
in
why,
English?
yeah. So that's why Mark Addy added the whole yeah, and everybody goes nuts. So I thought that, that's all.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, that's natural. It works out great.
Yes! Behold, my Lord Ulrich, the rock, the hard place. Like a wind from Geldland, he sweeps by, blown far from his homeland in search of glory and honor. We walk in the garden of his turbulence.
And I still laugh at that moment because not only knowing that piece of trivia, it's still a great moment.
Yeah.
Because Sir
He,
Ulrich wins.
He cheers out of the
etc.
side of his mouth.
Yeah. Almost like, he's trying to keep it hidden.
Oh my
So that was
gosh,
pretty
that's
good.
fantastic. I love that trivia. Thank you
Yeah.
for sharing.
Oh, for sure.
And that's where it was filmed in Prague?
It was, majority of it was filmed in Prague, yes.
Nice.
Yeah, and there's a shot of London and the Tower of London that is a digital shot because a lot of, you can't really shoot
Right, of
a
course.
shot of, I think it was set in the 1300s, A Knight's Tale. So that quick shot of them going into the next competition cost a $500,000 to
In CGI?
In CGI, yeah, because it's got the clouds that the camera
Yeah,
goes over the clouds,
that's right.
it comes into Tower of London. So yeah, it's pretty nuts that 2001, almost $500,000 for a CGI shot, which
That is, what, maybe 5 seconds long?
maybe, yeah, exactly. It's nuts. It's just so nuts.
Oh, man.
And the budget for this film was already $65 million.
What?
Yeah, it was a $65 million budget, and I think majority of that had to have gone to a lot of the locations and a lot of the construction for most of the sets
like
because
the arena, having
Yeah.
all the horses, the stunts. I mean, it definitely did not go. Those were not actor salaries.
no,
Because
not at all.
Heath Ledger,
Majority
this is his
were-
first big leading movie, right?
Yeah. Majority of everybody in this movie were not that this is their first movie, but like Mark Addy, Full Monty was late '90s. Alan Tudyk, I don't think I had seen him yet. Not to say he hadn't been around, but Shannon Sossaman had done Rules of Engagement, and she apparently was DJing a birthday party, and a producer saw her and said, "Hey, you should audition for this movie, A Knight's Tale." And so she went and auditioned, and her screen test with Heath Ledger was so great that they cast her almost immediately.
Nice.
So that was pretty sweet. I also liked the blacksmith Kate. I thought she was fantastic.
She was so cool. Oh my god, I love the fact that they added her character in there.
Yeah, definitely. And I like the use of women in this movie, and the fact that Kate is a blacksmith, like she's this rugged woman kicking ass, making these awesome pieces of armor for Sir Ulrich. When they hire her to actually make his new armor, and she's like, I can make armor that you wouldn't feel, and he's like, well, I'm wearing it and it feels too thin, and then they test it out, and he's like, oh shit, I didn't feel a thing. So they're like, all right, you know what you're doing, because they also kind of insult her a little bit, like,
Right.
you're really good with horseshoes, but you're shite with armor. And she's like, fuck that, I'll show you how shite I am with armor.
What does a woman know?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I love how they used that and just turned it on its head in this movie. It was like, fuck you, let me show you what I can do.
Yeah.
That's great.
There's actually one moment in the movie that I wrote down specifically because it's when Sir Ulrich and Jocelyn are in the cathedral later on towards the movie, when she is like, prove your love to me by losing today. And he's like, his volume is getting higher and getting higher. And then she starts yelling at him. And then there's a guy from the church like, quiet down, woman. And she goes, how dare you quiet me, but not him? Get out of here. Like, she like throws him out. I was
was
like,
awesome.
fuck yeah. Yeah, I love that.
great.
Just completely standing up for herself. And that's the other thing too. Like Jocelyn's character, she wasn't some pushover, like royalty.
Damsel in
just like-
distress.
Exactly. Yeah, she had a mind of her own. She had chops, and we see that often, which I really liked. And Shannon Sossaman has not, I don't think she's done a whole lot. I mean, she did Rules of Attraction. She did this. She was in 40 Days and 40 Nights. She's in a movie called Wrist Cutters, which is also a very interesting film. I think Patrick Fugit's in that one with her. That's one of my wife's favorite movies. And then what else? I mean, beyond the stunts, the locations, Brian Helgeland chose modern music and classic rock because he wanted to convey the excitement that people in that time had for their music. And the only reason that he did that and used like "We Will Rock You" to essentially open A Knight's Tale was because back then the music wouldn't have been as upbeat, but they still would have gotten into it. So there's that kind of connotation where he's like, "We Will Rock You" is universal for I would say just about any century now that we have that song, and I thought he used it very well. And he uses "Boys Are Back in Town," which is a great one. He uses "Lowrider," which I thought was kind of good too.
But that's an interesting strategy because I remember when this movie came out and a lot of people criticized it because it wasn't authentic and they're like, what the fuck, he's putting in this music that like totally takes you out of the movie. And for him being deliberate with that and saying that, no, there's an emotional tie-in here that you will get invested in this movie versus if I had a bunch of music with fucking lutes and harpsichords or whatever they're going to use in the 1300s.
No,
that actually totally makes sense. Yeah, it's a great strategy because you do get hyped up because "We Will Rock You" is playing.
Hell yeah, absolutely. And I think it's still hilarious. During the "We Will Rock You" guitar parts, we see like 5 guys blowing in a trumpet or like a long horn, and then they stop, and it's like, oh, the song's over. Oh shit, okay, I can get into it. I'm all right with it. Yeah, overall, just a lot of fun. Very clever script, a lot of great comedy, a lot of great action sequences. I mean, They even tie in, a couple of wars because Count Adhemar is like the leader of the free companies, and again played wonderfully by Rufus Swell. You want him to fall down off the horse. One sequence that I really like is when Ulrich is about to joust with somebody that they're not entirely sure who he's about to joust with. So in a weird way, Ulrich is playing somebody he's not, and so is this other character. So we come to find out that it's Prince Edward, the Black Prince, and Count Adhemar actually forfeits the joust because he doesn't want to essentially hurt a royal member of the family.
Yeah, that's how you get killed.
Exactly, yeah. So when Chaucer tells him that it's Prince Edward, he's like, you know what? He's here to joust, and so am I. So before they even really throw the flag down, Ulrich bounces into mode, and then Prince Edward's all about it. He's like, fuck yeah, somebody wants to challenge me. And then the conversation that they have between each other is really nice.
Yeah, and I love how they showed 2 sides of the social spectrum of people wanting to be somebody else. I thought that was very poignantly done.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought that was great.
And this movie's so quotable. I know I've already said it, but goddamn, rewatching this movie because I hadn't seen it in a few years, and I'm rewatching. I'm like, oh my god, I remember this. Yeah. Oh, and when one of my favorites is Paul Bettany, who, for nothing else, like if you're not a fan of Knights or if you're not a fan of Heath Ledger or what have you, just watching this movie for Paul Bettany's monologues is worth the price of admission because holy shit, he's amazing. And when he's
so good,
when he's done screaming one of them and everybody's cheering, he's like, oh God, I'm good.
Yeah. That was really good.
Yes.
And I like, I like that Chaucer, we come to find out that he's got a little bit of a past history with a couple of guys. And after he's essentially saved by William/Ulrich from these 2 guys, he threatens these 2 gentlemen, and they start laughing like, how could you ever threaten us? He goes, oh, well, I'll destroy you in literature. I'll destroy you in history. People will know your name as, I can't remember exactly what he said.
will be naked. I was naked for a day.
Yes.
You will be naked for all of eternity.
Right, yeah. And then he's like, I feel we'll meet again. And they both walk away laughing. And apparently he does make them naked for all eternity because he uses them in
Canterbury Tales. Yeah.
So I thought that was great. Which I actually have not read Canterbury Tales, but that's one of my wife's favorite books.
It's definitely, it's one of those assigned books that you have to read for either high school or college. It's a tome. I know I've used that term before on our podcast, but it is. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely, if you are a fan of reading or just literature in general, it's definitely, it's always on those lists of, must reads for sure. I think it's absolutely over 1,000 pages.
Oh yeah, it's a thick one. We have, I think we have 2 copies of it. Yeah. She has a paperback and a hardcover.
Nice.
And it's a big one.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I just love that like Brian Helgeland did actually do some tie-ins for historical context that are realistic. That's cool.
Oh yeah, the tie-ins were great. Prince Edward was also real, the Black Prince. There was history with him. And during some of the other jousting introductions by the squires, those names were people in history as well. So I thought that was also
cool.
Yeah, pretty sweet.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so Knight's Tale came out on May 11th, 2001, had a budget of $65 million. It only came in at number 46 for the year, unfortunately. It's top 100, I suppose. However, it only grossed in the U.S. $56.5 million. So it did not make its U.S. budget back anyway. But worldwide box office gross was $117 million.
Fabulous.
So it did all right worldwide, just not so great in the U.S. And I think, like you said, there was a lot of animosity about the soundtrack. People didn't know who Heath Ledger was yet. Nobody really knew who Brian Helgeland was yet. And it's not a bad movie. I remember seeing it in theaters, and when I saw it in theaters, it was my family and I went and saw it. We almost didn't see it because what my dad had heard was like, oh, they use rock and roll in like medieval times. That doesn't sound like a good movie at all. And of course, we are 10 minutes into the movie and we're laughing our asses off.
Yeah.
And mostly that comes from Alan Tudyk in the first like 15 minutes of the movie, especially when he threatens Geoffrey Chaucer. So yeah, I think that's almost everything that I got about A Knight's Tale. Again, stunts, majority of them were practical. One thing that actually kind of blew me away was that the opening joust sequence with William and when he wins the first joust, there was an accident on set involving his stunt double, and they kept it in. And it was when he falls off the horse, and that actually was not supposed to happen. Yeah. And
was
for
the
those
stunt double okay?
Oh yeah, stunt double was fine. Nobody
good.
got like physically
Hurt.
injured.
Okay,
it was
good.
just an accident. Yeah, just something happened that shouldn't have, etc. Kind of like majority of the time. I thought that it was great that the use of horses were used very well. The Humane Society was on set for it, so
Good.
the no animals were harmed in the making of this. Definitely is at the end of the credits. Although to an extent, I feel that may not always be true, because when a couple of the guys go down and like the horse goes down with them, I can only imagine that the horse had a little bit of pain during that.
I mean, the horses in movies are trained to make those movements and do those falls like very classically in westerns. When a horse falls, like a horse is trained to fall like that. They work very hard on, animal trainers work very hard with horses to train, similar to dogs, right? How dogs sit and lay down and jump and things. They do the same thing with horses and train them to fall. So the horse knows because a horse has some of the most fragile bone structure in their legs than any other animal on earth. The way that a horse is built is incredibly inefficient in a lot of ways. They are very fragile creatures in a lot of ways, and I grew up with horses because I grew up on a farm, and so grew up riding them from a very young age and learning about them. And so yeah, they are very, when you look at like the physiology of a horse, it's very weirdly built. So yes, so for movies they have to be very careful and have to use experienced trainers and experienced movie horses to make those movements and not get injured.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. I had no idea.
Yeah, my pleasure. Yeah,
That's great.
Big animal advocate, so that kind of thing is very important to me, as well as you said, the stuntman not getting hurt, of course, very important to me with my background. And I did read one piece of trivia that I thought was really interesting about that. I was curious if you're going to bring it up. There was one injury on set in this whole movie.
I was actually going to bring it
up.
Good. Heath Ledger ended up knocking out one of Brian Helgeland's teeth during a practice session, and apparently Brian Helgeland left it until the end of production. So yeah, that actually wraps up, I think, A Knight's Tale for me. I really love the movie, saw it in theaters, bought the DVD right away. It's one of those movies that the family and I have watched endlessly. We haven't watched it in a while, so I actually borrowed my parents' DVD copy of it, because I personally didn't buy it, my parents did. And you can actually watch A Knight's Tale on streaming on Hulu, Stars, and Amazon Prime with your premium subscription.
Yes, on demand on Stars. I watched my copy of it because I am a big fan of this movie, but it is on demand on Stars. I did learn that.
Excellent. So yeah, I hope everybody enjoyed our talk about A Knight's Tale. And Dave?
Yes, I hope so too, and love that our movies were kind of lighter picks. I loved revisiting both of these and laughing throughout both movies.
Definitely, yeah. So for next week, do you want to mention what we're going to be watching for next week?
Yes, I would love to. So we brought some lighter fare to you, and now we are making a very hard 180.
Yes, we are.
To some of the darkest movies we've picked so far. Specifically my pick. I chose the 2000 horror thriller movie with Jennifer Lopez and Vincent D'Onofrio, The Cell.
Oh, yeah.
Really intense movie, but also very beautiful movie. If you get a chance to see it before next week, that's great. You can rent it on Amazon Prime for $2.99.
Awesome. And I chose a far lighter film than The Cell. I chose the Michel Gondry written and directed, Gael Garcia Bernal, Charlotte Gainsbourg led The Science of Sleep. Now, if anybody's seen Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, this is somewhat in a similar vein to that. It does have to deal with dreams and sleep and lucidity, and I saw it in theaters and I loved it, so I will be watching my DVD copy, but you can stream Science of Sleep. It's on Amazon Prime and Apple TV for $2.99. I think that's going to be a fun episode because yours is twisted and mine is not so twisted.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a turning the tables on both of us.
Yeah, that's a good point. We've got range. What can I say?
Yes, we do.
So yes, everybody please, if you enjoyed the episode, if you are a fan of this show, rate, review, and subscribe. It's so important, especially in the very beginning as we're getting this podcast up and running. If you are a fan and you're like, oh yeah, I'll get around to reviewing, writing up a review, please do it sooner rather than later, because in the very beginning, it is so important for our visibility for Apple Podcasts. We are really hoping to get on the new and noteworthy section of Apple Podcasts, and that can only happen through early reviews. So please go ahead and write us up a rating if you've been thinking about it recently. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you for everybody again for coming back. The interaction on Instagram and Twitter is fantastic. Do follow us on Instagram, Movies You Missed Pod, and on Twitter, Movies You Missed Pod. We are very active on both of those platforms and like to discuss movies and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And as we always like to end our episodes, film is a form of art, and in art, every opinion is valid, except if you think
voice acting is not acting.
Hey, nice.
Thank you. Yeah.
Agreed indeed.
Oh, good. Yeah. Alan Tudyk, huge voice actor, has tons and tons of voice acting credits, and so I thought that was an appropriate statement for this episode. And
love it.
I personally think voice acting is harder than acting because of the fact that you do not have any response or returns, and it is literally just your voice having to inflect the right emotions, and always have had a ton of respect for voice actors.
I have as well. Yeah, that's a good one. Good stuff.
Thank you. Well, yeah. I loved this episode. I'm so happy to discuss both of those films.
As am I. I had a great time today, and hopefully we'll have a great time next week.
We usually do.
Yes, we do. All right, thanks, everybody. That about wraps it up for episode 12 of Movies You Missed. Cheers, everybody.
Bye.
Taking you nowhere. Angel, look at that sky, life's begun. Lights are